schedule, or as some people refer to it as, the European football calendar. Basically, the idea is that some people think that MLS should ditch its current late February to late November-ish schedule and instead opt for a August to May-ish schedule, meaning MLS plays in the winter and doesn't play in the summer. Is this just silly gobbledygook by the critics of MLS just because the league does things a little differently? Or do the haters actually have some valid points? Should MLS think about switching to a winter schedule? Well, let's find out. No more headaches for the international breaks.
Alright, even if you love the current summer schedule, you do have to admit that there is some awkwardness whenever international breaks come. And while MLS has gotten better over the years at not having a full slate of games whenever players are away on international duty, it's never perfect. There's always going to be a few random games that have to be played, and to be honest, it seems a little unfair to those teams if they have players needing to leave for international duty. But these weird schedule quirks are kinda unavoidable. I mean, you gotta fit in 34 games in there somehow. However, if you followed a winter schedule, you'd be on the same page as Western Europe, which, let's be honest, that's FIFA's top priority when it comes to club soccer. So these international breaks would be a lot easier to schedule around. Just play the games when everyone else is playing, and don't play when they aren't. Simple. Also, this would make bringing in players a lot easier. I mean, I don't even want to think about how many players MLS has lost out on because of the wonky transfer windows with the current schedule. Players are more likely to transfer out at the end of their season rather than in the middle. That's why a lot of times the big marquee signings come over halfway through the MLS season in the summer transfer window rather than in the beginning of the year. If MLS started with everyone else, then the stars would be coming for the entire season.
And asking a star player to come over here and start playing right away, that is a tough ask. I mean, think about it. That basically means that player doesn't get an off season. They go from playing a whole season in Europe to jumping in right away and playing another half season in MLS. That is a lot of mileage for anyone, but especially players over the age of 30, which, MLS has a couple of those. There is no doubt in my mind that that fact alone turns off plenty of potential players for this league. The weather?
People were so mad at the USMNT for hosting a World Cup qualifier in Minnesota in February in freezing conditions. Well, with the winter schedule, get ready for multiple freezing games, multiple snow games, because in some of these markets, you're going to be playing in more terrible weather more often than acceptable weather. Oh, but Europe does it. They can figure it out. Well, okay, so for one thing, most major European cities don't get nearly as cold as certain US markets, and they definitely don't get as much snow. Yeah, nor'easters, that's not a thing London has to worry about. A lot of these European countries might get 10 inches of snow for the entire season. New England gets that every 2 days. Oh yeah, well, what about the Nordic countries? Finland, Norway, Sweden, how do they do it? You want to know how they do it? They play in the summertime. Yeah, just like the US, they know the conditions are too brutal to play in the winter. And oh, by the way, other countries like Japan, Korea, they play in the summertime too. Like, yeah, I know most high-profile leagues seem to play a winter schedule, but let's not pretend like MLS is the only league that doesn't. I mean, I can handle 1 or 2 snow classicals a year, but that's about it. Like, soccer in the snow, it's a fun spectacle, but it's not actually good soccer. Remember how much Bruce Arena and Carlos Gil bitched last year about having to play in the snow? I mean, listening to their comments again, they're not wrong. It's not real soccer, and if you want MLS to play attractive soccer, you can't do it in these conditions. Now, I've heard some people say, okay, well, just don't schedule the cold weather teams to have games in the winter. How's that supposed to work? You just want them to start the season with 10 away games, and vice versa? You just want the warm weather teams to finish their season with 1 million road games? That doesn't seem too fair. And then I've heard, oh, well, you could just have a winter break, like the other European countries. Yeah, just take a month off in the season. No. Definitely can't do that in MLS. When there's already 34 regular season games, plus Leagues Cup, plus playoffs, plus US Open Cup, plus CCL for some teams, like 0% chance we would be able to fit in a winter break.
Look, it's one thing if you have 1 or 2 bad weather games at the beginning of the season, plus maybe 1 or 2 bad weather games at the end of the playoffs. But if you add in basically all of December, all of January, all of February, if these teams get an average of 2 home games a month, you're looking at 6 or 7 bad weather games minimum. And that's assuming we get lucky and don't have any bad weather games in November or March or April. Like, you're looking at a quarter of the season tainted with unplayable conditions. MLS Cup no longer has to compete with the NFL.
Virtually every sport experiences a good ratings boost for the playoffs, and for good reason. It makes sense. The playoffs are the most exciting time of the year for everyone. The exception is MLS, because typically the playoffs yield no higher ratings than the regular season. MLS Cup might experience a bit of a boost, but not equal to the boost of other sports championships. The main reason for this is the scheduling of the playoffs. You see it in the summertime. MLS doesn't really have that much competition. I mean, it's baseball, and that's about it. But come the playoffs in October and November, well, now they are directly competing with the NFL and NCAA football. And football is king in this country. Their ratings dwarf everyone, and that is never going to change.
So how do you get around this? How do you get the most eyeballs on MLS at the most important time of the year during the playoffs? It's simple. You just avoid the black hole known as the NFL and college football. If you do have a winter schedule, that means MLS Cup is going to be in May, and okay, sure, now you got to compete with both the NBA and NHL playoffs, but even still, that is nothing compared to regular season NFL. Just look at the TV ratings. They don't compare. MLS now directly competing with the EPL.
It's a fact. Liga MX and EPL are the 2 most popular soccer leagues in this country. And when it comes to the current schedule and the playoffs not getting better ratings, the casual fans will come and go. Here's my hot take. It's not that big of a deal if someone who has a passing interest in soccer moves on to the NFL. But if you have a real soccer fan, someone that can actually be into MLS, and you're forcing them to choose between MLS and the prestigious EPL, that is a much bigger loss because it's totally avoidable. I mean, good luck trying to convince an EPL fan to miss a critical late-season match with massive title or relegation implications before an MLS playoff match. If it's the beginning of the EPL season, though, like the second or third match, yeah, you can miss that game against Crystal Palace. It's not that big of a deal.
Now, true, the games are at different times of the day, so yes, a person could watch both the EPL and MLS. But that's a lot of soccer, and not all of us can or want to pay attention for that long. The summer schedule is unique to MLS because the climax of the playoffs doesn't have to directly compete with the climaxes of the other leagues. I can't think of anything else. It is logistically impossible to make the switch.
Okay, so let's say you want to switch after this season. Okay, MLS Cup is in December, the next season would start in August. What are we doing for those 8 months of transition? That is a long-ass offseason. Can MLS really afford to have 8 months of no ticket sales? Hell, MLS lost $1 billion in 2020 alone, and you would be seeing similar numbers if you had to wait 8 months of no action. And MLS, they cannot keep pissing away that kind of money. So, fine, maybe you set this plan for the future, a couple years down the road. Maybe you have the MLS season end in October one year, and then you start a little earlier the next year and end it in August the next year, and then you do that again and end it in June the year after that, and then finally, 4 or 5 years down the road, you're at a point where MLS can start in August and end in May. That sounds fine, except now the transfer windows are even more messed up during those transition years. Yeah, you thought bringing in a player halfway through the season was bad? How about convincing him to come a third or 2/3 of the way through the season? It's just messy. And let's not forget about all the scheduling nightmares with teams in NFL stadiums. Yeah, you know how NYCFC gets kicked out of their stadium whenever the Yankees make the playoffs and how big of a mess that is? Well, expect similar situations with teams like Atlanta, New England, Seattle, Chicago, Charlotte. Oh, okay, maybe we don't got to worry about Charlotte because the Panthers suck and they never make the playoffs. But unless you just go the route of giving all these teams all road games in December through February, which, yeah, good luck convincing those fan bases of that.
And you spend all these years going through all this trouble to make this huge change, and what if it's not even worth it because you lose all of the advantages of the summer?
Just look at the attendance numbers. Games that are nice weather versus bad weather. Even in markets that should be used to the cold, you see a noticeable drop in attendance. Now, take the few times that happens in the summer months and multiply it by about 10, and that's what's going to happen to the attendance league-wide. Besides the teams that play indoors, attendance is going to take a nosedive. Now, I hear you. What about the teams in the extreme heat? They'll welcome the change. And yes, true, MLS was very dumb about scheduling games at 1 p.m. in the Florida and Texas heat. I agree with you. But that's not really going to be an issue anymore with the new Apple TV deal, with the majority of games now all starting at 7:30 at night when it is much cooler out.
Plus, in the summertime, the kids, they got no school. It's way easier to make a trip out of it and go to a game. Meanwhile, in the wintertime, you're going to be driving home late after a game. The kid's going to be working on a book report by Carlight. You know what? You can have fun with that, but me, I don't want to deal with it. You're still competing with the NFL and college football. Okay, while it's true that MLS Cup does fall right in the middle of the NFL season, let's think about this for a second. If MLS were to start in August, August is the same month that preseason starts for the NFL. MLS would be going on now for the entirety of the NFL and college football season. Sure, you might get a little bit of a ratings boost for MLS Cup, and all you had to do was sacrifice ratings now for 3 extra months. That ain't worth it anymore. And I'm not even convinced that MLS Cup would experience significantly higher TV ratings if it were in May, because we're still relying on the casual fans for tuning in, and that's not something I'm willing to bet the house on. The weather. Yep, I gotta bring it up again, because seriously, this is not hard to grasp. Okay, bringing up the casual fans again. Major League Soccer has a lot of them. They have a lot more casual fans than diehard fans. And you are gonna lose all of them if you ask them to go watch a game in 32-degree weather with a chance of snow. Like, it's one thing if it's a playoff game or an MLS Cup, but a regular season match, multiple regular season matches with this weather, that is gonna be suicide for ticket sales in the northern states. Is that the case of should MLS go to a winter schedule? No. Okay? The answer is no. I don't gotta waste my time here fading to black, adding in the Law and Order sound effects, building tension, because this is the easiest debate of all time. The answer is emphatically no. Okay, look, I get it. This league is not for everyone. It's got a lot of weird, quirky things about it, but adopting a winter schedule will not work. That and the playoffs being the best thing ever, those are two hills I am willing to die on for this league. MLS winter schedule. Get the hell out of here with that garbage!